What if the thing that saved your life, the place that gave you peace for the very first time in your life, was also the place you needed to leave? This is one of the most disorienting thresholds that I've ever had to walk through. And I think that most anybody has to walk through. When the answer isn't about running away from something painful, but when it's walking away from something you love, because even though you love it, you know you've outgrown it. And that happens. It can happen to any one of us. It can happen to all of us. That you absolutely love something in your life, but over time you recognize you've outgrown it. It doesn't fit who you are anymore. I'm Dr. Dorothy Martin Neville, and this is Reinvention, the threshold to freedom and joy. And I'm sharing another one of the many thresholds that I've walked through in my life. After 5 years in religious life, it was time. It was time for me to walk away. It was time for me to leave a life of semi-cloister that I had lived. I knew it. It came very slowly. It came peacefully. And sometimes it came in a way I didn't want to see because I absolutely loved being in religious life. But yet to understand it, to understand what it meant to me, is to understand where I came from. Because religious life gave me a peace I had never known. And the reason I had never known it was because I grew up in the housing projects in South Boston, and I grew up in a very violent alcoholic home. So it was a great deal of violence in the house, and there was potential of violence outside of the house. I entered a world, when I entered religious life, I entered a world I never knew existed. I went from survival, which was not a metaphor for me. It was really a life adventure. Surviving mentally and surviving physically in my home is an adventure. I made it, obviously. But entering religious life was a gift that I gave myself. It was a call. It was a threshold I walked through that was a gift beyond words. And so choosing to leave that seemed to make no sense. It was one of those things, and I don't know if you've had that experience. And if you are, please make a comment below. But when there's something you love, but it begins to feel tighter and tighter on you, it begins to feel like a container that you know you've outgrown. You know that it's been a gift. It wasn't a mistake. It was the right choice. It was perfect for where you were. It was perfect for what you needed. And when I entered religious life, truly, and I didn't have words for it, I achieved a peace that I never knew existed. And in religious life, they sent me to college. I had tried to go to college before I entered. I couldn't. I tried to go to nursing school. I couldn't. I had gone to an unaccredited inner city high school. And yet when I entered religious life with the long black habit on and the name of Sister James Marie rather than Dottie Martin, I was able to go to college. So they gave me something I had never imagined I had given up on. I had no hope for. And I found that when you walk through thresholds, when you take these risks of going after something, you have no idea the gifts you're giving yourself. You have no idea what's waiting for you on the other side of that threshold, which is why, to me, I can't say enough. When you know it's time for you to walk through a threshold, do it, go for it, discover what it is going to have for you, discover what the gift is going to be for you, because you don't know what it is. You don't know what's going to happen. And the threshold isn't always running away. Sometimes a threshold means you graduated from what you had been called to. It doesn't mean you're rejecting it. It doesn't mean you don't love it. You may love it completely, but simultaneously you know that you've outgrown it, that it doesn't fit you anymore. It fit who you were. It doesn't fit who you are. So it's not a rejection. It's a graduation. And understand that, because we can have a hard time trying to reject something because it makes no sense. If you can reframe that I'm leaving this because I've outgrown it. I'm leaving this because it's been a gift, but I'm being called to so much more. I'm being called to something bigger. And sometimes, as I said earlier, it comes like a slow thing. I've got to get out of here. But sometimes it's a very slow way that many different knowings. You know this doesn't fit, and you know that doesn't fit, and sometimes you don't want to leave because it still has a hold on you. Don't leave till you're ready. But know that different things happen for all of us, different things that change who we are. For me, the community's belief that when people you know are in trouble, you pray for them. It's a way of life for the community. It's a belief system they have. My personality that I discovered when I was in religious life, what I discovered was a spirituality I didn't know existed. What they taught me was the huge difference, ironically, between spirituality and religion. They taught me that religion is a series of beliefs. Spirituality is a way of life. And my spirituality called me that when the college student was in trouble, when somebody was in trouble and they asked for help, I wanted to go and help them. I didn't want to sit in church and pray for them. I wanted to pray in the car while I was on my way to go help. And that was not at all the expectations. That was not at all the beliefs of the people who were there. I don't disagree with them. I don't contradict them. That suits who they are. It didn't suit who I was. And more I was getting into trouble. More and more, if you ever saw the movie about Maria, when Maria had to go, was always The Sound of Music, and she was always in trouble. I know that one. I know it well. And I laughed when I saw that movie because I was always getting in trouble. Not because of anything I did wrong, but because who I was becoming, who I was growing into, consistently was in value conflict and difficulty with where I was and where I was going. And after a number of years that were in religious life, they gave us a week in which we could go home and visit our families. And so I left semi-cloister and I went back to Southie and stayed with my mom and went to visit friends, went to visit old places that I had hung out at, and realized that I was so dramatically different than the person who lived there. I was so dramatically different than who I had been. But I also realized that I didn't fit there. I didn't fit in Southie. I didn't fit with the people's friends. Some friends had gone to war in Vietnam. Some friends were in prison. Some friends were young mothers living in the projects on welfare. I had become a social worker. I had gone to college. I didn't fit in religious life, and I didn't fit in the projects. It was one of those, do I leave here when I don't even know where I belong? Do I leave religious life when I don't belong in either of the worlds I know? It's disorienting and it's something undeniable, but I knew I wanted to jump out of airplanes. I wanted to climb mountains. I wanted to do things. And being outside for a week told me all of that. It taught me there was so much more energy in me, so much more vibrancy that didn't fit in religious life. So the decision I had to make was to follow that, knowing that the corset was going to get tighter and tighter if I stayed where I was. I had discovered an inner world I never knew existed, and knew it was time for me to discover the outer world, to fly to different countries, to experience different cultures, to go. And it wasn't an escape. It was called, I was being called to expansion. I was being called to become so much more than I was. I was being called to recognize that my life had been an absolute gift. Religious life had been an absolute gift. But it was time. It was time for me to walk away with the peace I had achieved in there, the me I had discovered in there that I never knew existed, the education I had that now prepared me for so much more. And ironically, in those days, to be an airline stewardess, you needed to have college education. And I now had it. I think there's a purpose in everything we do. And my purpose in going within religious life, it certainly gave me the ability to now go and fly. So when I left religious life and Southie didn't fit, I applied to become an international airline stewardess, and I flew over 1 million miles around the world. I felt so blessed to have had the experience that made all of this possible for me, that made a new life possible that I never would have had before. If this is you, if this is your life, if there's something you've outgrown, even though you love it, and you're ready to do something more, please do make a comment, do share. Let's talk about this together. And if you are ready and confused, you need help, click the link for my life audit, and let's do this together. Have a great day. Bye.